This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Part 3. Develop effective habits of leadership. Now that we have reviewed the elements that build a foundation for success, it is time to discuss some of the key habits that will help a superintendent succeed on a project. The concepts may seem basic, but they will prove helpful to you in your role as you apply them. Principle 1. Hold effective meetings. Meetings are held for the purpose of communicating, taking information from concept to design to the workers. When you hear people complain about meetings, it is likely because they value their personal efficiency more than overall efficiency, or perhaps the meeting was simply not run properly. Both issues can be effectively addressed. First, let's consider people who may not like meetings because they value individual efficiency. When someone says they are too busy to attend a meeting, they are focused on their work only. When they say meetings are not necessary, they are likely planning to keep the knowledge they have in their head and work things out in the field or by themselves. Why does this happen? Two possible suggestions would be their desire for control and credit. They want to control the distribution of information, or they want credit for carrying out the work themselves. This is a taker mentality. What we need on site are givers. People willing to give of their time and knowledge to help the throughput of communication on site. We constantly hear of superintendents who say, I don't need to communicate the schedule or hold site huddles with traits because I have the plan in my head. I will just communicate with everyone on site individually. We do not need superintendents in the field with the plan only in their heads because we are focused on the throughput of communication, not the individual control or individual credit. When superintendents keep things in their heads instead of on a visual plan, they cling to the control and crave credit, and they waste valuable time. Trade partners on site are confused, without direction, and not productive because they are waiting for the superintendent to come and save the day with information that only he or she has. It is destructive and unhealthy to our working relationships with our trade partners. It has worked for so many years because it's simply been the status quo. The alternative is a well-communicated plan and schedules shared and coordinated in meetings. The second reason people avoid meetings is that they do often waste time because they aren't run effectively. Maybe the head of the meeting lets people wander off into personal stories or off-topic tales designed to boost the ego of the teller or the boss. Maybe someone feels it's the perfect time to air grievances that should be taken directly to the superintendent. Often, meetings are run with agendas so boring they could double as a prescription for a narcoleptic. None of these scenarios are acceptable. Meetings should be effective, engaging, and upbeat. They should almost always have healthy conflict in the form of honest discussion about important issues relating to the project, and they should keep everyone's attention. Well-run meetings are amazing. So how do we hold an effective meeting? First, have a clear purpose for the meeting. What do we want people to know or feel after it's done? If the meeting has no purpose, cancel it. If someone else asked you to hold the meeting for them and there is no apparent purpose, cancel it. If you hold a meeting and the attendees aren't prepared to present their information, then reschedule so everyone is prepared. You must be aiming for an outcome. I want people to know the exact steps to getting the air on for this building, or I want all of us to brainstorm on the root cause of this accident so we can leave here knowing how this will never happen again. Both examples of outcomes that would require a meeting. Second, prepare beforehand. Only the most skilled leaders can lead an impromptu meeting, and even then, it is an irresponsible habit. Be sure that the purpose of the meeting is clear to all who will attend, and provide all attendees with an agenda that lists discussion points of who will present relevant information. Attendees will then know what topics will be addressed and won't be tempted to interrupt discussions because they are worried that their concerns won't be covered. Also, they will know the order of who will speak and who can leave when meeting topics no longer apply to them. Having an agenda gives the leader of the meeting time to prepare to facilitate discussion and be aware of subjects that may invite off-topic comments. Leaders must always be prepared to redirect discussion that has strayed from the agenda, either by inviting the wayward speaker to speak with them individually at a later time, or asking them to hold their concerns for the next meeting. Be prepared. Remember, the people in the room are there at a considerable sacrifice and cost to themselves and the company. Make every second worth their time. Third, hook them from the outset. You must catch everyone's interest and get their thoughts flowing within the first few minutes. Consider creating a moment that everyone in the room will remember. A joke, a video, a call to action, or something else that will stick in their minds. Keep it relevant to what will be discussed. Get them energized and ready to tackle the topic at hand. How you start is likely how you will continue. Get their attention and focus immediately. Fourth, keep their attention. Do not guide the meeting based only on content. Base the flow of the meeting on the energy and attention of the room. If you are losing people, speak louder, faster, or in a more interesting way. If they are bored because the topic has been thoroughly discussed, move on. Ask a question and get them talking. Whatever you do, don't lose the group and don't lose control. If someone is outright distracting or disruptive, call them out and steer the conversation back to the topic. Do it politely, but do it. Wasting the time of the group is disrespectful. An artful master of meetings will keep people's attention and think on the fly so that the discussion does not lose momentum. Fifth, be sensitive about people's time. Let people know in advance how long you think the meeting will last. Then if the meeting is done, end it. Do not wait for the initially planned for end of time to arrive. Remember, we are trying to create a remarkable experience in our meetings, and nothing dulls that more than being stuck in a conference room when you could be acting on the information you've received. And finally, provoke conflict. If your team is not having healthy discussions at meetings and disagreeing with each other, then they do not trust each other. We need to mine for open discussion in every meeting. If everyone is just agreeing and not engaging, then they will only remember a small fraction of the information conveyed, and we will have bottlenecked the throughput of communication. Get them talking, arguing, offering solutions or problems, whatever it takes to get them to own and process the plans and information presented in the meeting. Remember, everyone needs to weigh in and buy in. If you can host effective meetings, you can truly lead. One of the first signs of a project in trouble is a job that does not have a regularly scheduled team meeting with people who show up on time, ready to participate. This is an immediate indicator of a lack of communication and an increase in waste and variation. Meetings not held regularly indicate mistrust, unhealthy individualization, and chaos. We need to communicate information from start to finish during the project. We cannot communicate one-on-one to 300 people on site without sacrificing time, money, energy, and morale. We must have effective meetings and communicate in groups. Effective meetings can organize chaos into stability, build relationships and trust, and ensure that everyone weighs in and buys in. This is how we build the culture of our work site. On-site meetings should be hosted for the planning of the project, creating the plan for the following week with contractors, developing a plan for the next day, huddling up in the morning with all the workers, and filling out pre-task plans to prepare for the work. This all happens as part of the flow of the workday. We want to see as a group, know as a group, and act as a group. If you coached a football team, would you make plays, tell a few people, and then do nothing else until game day when you walk on the field and begin to individually coach people mid-game? That is exactly what we do on projects sometimes. We make our plan in a vacuum, tell a few people, and do nothing until the day when we go around and talk to people individually so we can feel important for being needed. When someone says they are too busy to have a meeting, they are taking the easy way out and inconveniencing hundreds of other people. Principle 2. Have a presence in the field. Professional baseball catcher Yogi Berra once said that you can observe a lot by just watching. One of the first priorities of a superintendent on site is to be a presence in the field. Safety and quality cannot be managed by sitting in an office. Conversely, We cannot manage only from the field. There must be a balance. Typically, we see assistant superintendents and field engineers taking the primary load here, but it should be balanced throughout the team. If someone is always watching the field, we will be successful on projects and ready for emergencies or situations that need correction. We appreciate the time spent by assistant superintendents in the field, which allows the lead superintendents to have the time for planning and preparation. We also appreciate the entire team doing their part, especially for late days and weekend work. Project teams that spread out their presence in the field and divide the overtime hours among each member can be extremely successful. In no case should this responsibility fall to one person. Achieving safety and quality requires supervision. These elements thrive when people can see and identify problems early. In Japanese manufacturing plants, they have what is called an andon, which is a button, lever, or signaling device that will shut down the production line if problems occur. In order for the system to be effective, someone with the authority to stop the work must always be observing the work site. We may not have an actual andon installed in the field to serve as an alarm, but we need to apply the same concept on our projects. We need people to watch the line of production on site and signal if anything is unsafe or defective. Our industry incentivizes production, not quality, and sometimes not safety. So this kind of accountability, not policing, is necessary. This is where the assistant superintendent and field engineer can really make a difference. Many owners have commented in the past about how much difference field personnel can make if they are watching and controlling the quality and safety on site. A key component in this approach is the mentoring and coaching that happens. Workers should not be policed. They need to be coached and held accountable. Every worker on site should be taught they can signal the andon. There is no substitute for the one-on-one relationships that can be formed between the management team and the professional craft in the field. It can be a major driver in all aspects of the project, but most importantly in morale and the trust that workers have with their leaders. If these critical relationships are not formed, and if communication breaks down, that is when projects begin to have problems, morale declines, and workers begin to disrespect safety, quality, cleanliness, and every other key indicator on site. We must build relationships with the workers. These relationships are the healthiest when founded in accountability and standards of excellence, not indulgence and leniency. There is a concept in lean management that says we should go to the gemba, or place of work. Lean leaders do not manage projects by sitting in the office or looking at charts and numbers all day. Effective and excellent managers run projects with numbers, reports, and visits to the worksite. On-location visits allow us to see for ourselves what needs to be done. Earlier in this book, Ono circles were mentioned. If you were to work at a Japanese manufacturing facility, you might find yourself in a circle painted on the floor in the middle of the plant with instructions to stand in that circle and keep vigil. Your assignment would be to see, really see, what is happening on the worksite and make improvements. Many find their first day of this wasted. After some coaching and a little scolding, you would find yourself in the circle again the second day. This time would be different. You would see movement. You would see people and how they work. You would see interruptions and waste. You would see the root causes of frustrations. You would see what you had never seen before when you were too busy to pay attention and actually observe the work. Then, and only then, when you see what needs to be seen, is it possible to mentor, train, fix, find root causes, and improve the overall workflow. Then, you would know when to hit the andon for safety or quality. Are you a manager on site? Do you take the time to climb the tower crane and watch the flow of the project? Do you wait and watch long enough to see how things are going? Do you really observe the quality of work and safety? Do you look for safe behaviors, attitudes, habits, crew composition, and the quality of foremen on site? Do you make sure that someone is always out in the field watching and covering the site? If so, great. You are already doing what excellent builders do. If you don't, then begin immediately. If no one is watching, then no one is there to signal the end done and stop the work when there is a safety issue and prevent someone from getting hurt. Principle 3. To-do lists and personal organization. Being a great leader and builder comes from being organized and focused. People who do not take the time to develop personal organization systems can find themselves in the field fighting fires because that is the only way they know how to operate. Conversely, being able to plan and focus on a role will allow us to organize large efforts ahead of our time and execute them effectively. The way to do this is to know our role, schedule leaders' standard work, and control our to-do lists in a way that keeps us in control. The following suggestions will help you in creating your personal organization system. First, you must never forget what needs to be done. There is an old saying that a dull pencil is better than a sharp memory. This is absolutely true. With hundreds of thousands of material components coming together at specified times in a project, it is not wise to rely on our memories. We must have a to-do list and a system to utilize it. Remembering is the difference between being a poor manager and an excellent one. People who forget things are a liability. They are the ones who cause other members of the team to stay up at night worrying. The trick is to write down everything in one location: commitments, deliveries, meetings, ideas, and reference it regularly. Do this to stay on task and be effective. Once you have a repository of items that must be done, it is key to sort the list daily and focus on priorities. When organized leaders arrive at work, they sort through their Outlook, reference their to-do list, and prioritize items that need to be done that day. That leader can then add that list to the calendar day and go to work according to plan. People who have developed this habit are under control, steady, happy, on time, and often promoted. They control their time. It does not control them. They protect their plan and drive success. Create your leader's standard work plan. Leader standard work is when you transfer your tasks to a written plan so you can carve out time for the standard activities that must be done to carry out your role. For instance, a lead superintendent might have items on his weekly plan such as walk the job site, study the drawings, update the schedule, take a reflection walk, and attend the OAC meetings and foreman huddle. Notice there is no mention of items like boss people around or micromanage. Once this leader standard work becomes fixed, include it in your Outlook calendar. The tasks on the leader standard work plan should be protected from non-value add meetings and other distractions. To-do list items can fill in the rest of the time in your workday, but you should deal with your to-do list in order of priority. If something is urgent and important, do it as soon as possible. If something is not urgent but important, schedule a time to do the work. If it is urgent but not important, delegate it to someone on your team who can handle the task. And if it is not important and not urgent, delete it and then do not think about it again. In that way, you will accomplish the most important things first. Imagine someone filling a jar with sand, then gravel, then rocks until it overflows. Then imagine the person starts over, this time placing the rocks in first, the gravel second, and the sand third. What overflowed the jar before now all fits. Our time works the same way. Fit the most important things into your schedule first, and then do the rest in order of priority, and you will find that you have time to do everything that is required of you. Schedule your personal and family time first. Then fit in your leader standard work tasks, followed by your properly prioritized to-do list items. Then you will be adding rocks, then gravel, then sand to your daily time jar. You will have prioritized best, better, and good in their proper order, and the most important items of the day will all fit. Remember, discipline will always beat mere talent. Discipline yourself to never forget what needs to be done and the order in which it needs doing. Principle 4. Provide the 4 motivations people need to be effective. People need 4 motivations to be effective at work: a place to work, tools and equipment, training and instruction, and time to perform the task. These may seem commonsensical, but you may be surprised by how few people plan for these things and how much time is lost as a result. By not allowing the throughput of communication, understanding, thought, and action that each person needs, we end up with waste and variance. To be effective, we must ensure that these 4 basic needs are met for all the workers on site. First, provide an appropriate place to work. Do not underestimate that everyone needs a place to organize themselves, to think, and to do their work. Each of your team members likely needs a desk, enough space to work with drawings, screens for the computer that allow them to expand the content for understanding, and a place where they can sit and be comfortable and productive. All of this should be in an environment that facilitates communication, collaboration, trust, and at certain times, fun. For team members, providing an appropriate place to work may be a hard concept to plan for and understand because it is not easily measurable. The effects of bad planning in this area are not easily seen, but common sense and observation tell us that providing an appropriate place to work is very important. A team should thoughtfully plan the height, size, and configuration of desks and the size and quantity of monitors based on the available layout within the trailer. The trailer's design should benefit and support the way people need to work, act, and feel. For crews, workers need a place to put their lunch, their tools, and their plans. The purpose of gang boxes is twofold: a space for tools as well as a support for the productivity of the workers as they prepare their day and do their work effectively. The criterion should not be, how much does this gang box cost, or can they get by with this, but rather, does this gang box, station, or area support the work of the craft and enable the crew to plan, build, and finish their scope? On your projects, do not underestimate the need for people to have a place to work so they can be effective. Additionally, tools located in arbitrary locations result in treasure hunts for the worker. It is very effective to have the tools in secure locations that are organized, repetitive, clean, and sometimes shadow boarded. Second, every worker needs tools and equipment to do their work. We need to purchase, organize, and maintain tools and equipment so workers have what they need. Historically, we lose money with high-risk exposures and wasted man-hours. Only through waste, loss, or overspending can we lose money on small tools and equipment that help workers be productive and safe. It is discouraging to hear of supervisors who question and halt the purchase of needed tools for their field or office. The halting of a simple $200 purchase may hold up countless man-hours or productivity and comes at the expense of quality, cost, or someone's home life. Even if only 5 hours of production is lost in the course of a project, that still equates to well over $300 in loss to the company. If your workers need tools or equipment to effectively do their job, they should have them. The third motivation needed to be effective at work is training and instruction. If training our people is expensive, consider the cost when they are not trained. Our success and effectiveness is directly correlated with training. Everyone needs training in safety, quality, lean, and the specific work they are doing. Training should be intentional. For instance, creating a list in the team weekly tactical meeting that shows training events and times for team members can be very effective. Run your project in such a way that everyone can attend their training and the team can cover for them when necessary. The biggest insult to our people is to hold them up at the project and cause them to miss their training because leaders were not intentional enough to plan for coverage. Train, and train some more. Make training more effective. Choose better topics. Have people report on what they learned and then encourage them to train others. Double down on this and challenge your team to improve themselves daily and weekly. How are millionaires, Nobel Prize winners, and legends of history made? Hard work, constant learning, and a determination to self-improve every week. Better yet, let's expect those key elements from all of our people daily. Fourth, workers need time to perform a given task. We are not productive when workers work too quickly to perform a task due to time constraints. Fast work on site may mean fast planning, additional resources, staggered hours, prefab, and a number of other things, but it does not mean individuals working too fast. It also does not mean entitled workers going slow because they are not accountable. What is needed is a steady and effective pace. Give your workers realistic task durations and accountability. If working at a fast pace creates the potential for a worker to become injured, we need to point out that potential for injury, slow the worker down, and help them create an effective flow, and increase the support around them. This concept should be immediately implemented on our projects. It is not requisite to ask workers to pay for the sins of someone else who didn't do the job to the best of their ability. If there is a design change, that change should pay for the resources to fix it. If there is an item we want to absorb for the owner, we should do it out of our fee, not the health, well-being, and safety of the workers and the family time of the management. We need to allot everyone the time to do their work. Leader or worker, a story from the field. One time I was in Austin, Texas, 30 feet down in a limestone hole helping build a concrete basement for a Whole Foods World headquarters. I was working with the reinforcing company in several areas of the project and trying to make pour dates for decks, columns, and walls. I worked with one foreman who was always late, behind, and disorganized. Another foreman with the same company was always on time, on top of quality, and very effective. Being a young kid and wanting more experience, I asked the good foreman what the difference was. He said, "Jason, do you see that other foreman? He is always working with his people. He always has his head down working." I said, "So? What difference does that make?" "Well, Jason, his men never know what to do because he is working and not leading. You see, I spend all day getting material and instructions to my people, and they do the work. That is my job, and the only way I can keep everyone working well." That lesson has always stuck with me. It was the first time I realized it is our duty to get information and materials to our people. Our job is to prepare so that others can do their jobs. It is not to look like hard workers. It is to get others the tools, supplies, and information they need to do their jobs effectively. Principle 5. Be schedule-driven. A superintendent is schedule-driven. This seems like common sense, but what might come as a surprise to you is just how much the superintendent must know about scheduling and how often he or she will use that information. A superintendent should always be part of the creation, maintenance, and implementation of the schedule. This will guide the success of every other thing that superintendent will do. A super is the timekeeper on the job. He or she keeps everyone accountable in a kind, professional way to the time component of the project. There are also responsibilities for handling the components of how, where, and what, but the when is the main focus of the superintendent. Project managers with successful projects should be able to affirm that the super kept us accountable and moving forward throughout the project in a healthy way. There are no successful superintendents with woe is me or victim mentalities when things go awry. Superintendents plan, organize, drive, rally, and win. They help set the rhythm, help others match the rhythm, and keep the rhythm going on site. When creating a plan for the construction project, a superintendent must first know the constraints of the project and visualize a possible flow. Everything on a project, all 1 million pieces of it, must flow together in a seamless stream to assemble at the right time and in the right sequence. Identifying this allows us to identify our plan. The plan is the predecessor for everything else. Safety planning starts with the plan. Costs are affected by the plan. Quality is implemented from the plan. Production is achieved according to the plan. It all starts there. Safety, quality, schedule, cost, and production are all equally important. It all begins with the schedule. Therefore, it all begins with the superintendent. Once there is an established plan, it is the lead superintendent's job to maintain flow, keep the project energy high, feed the project with materials and manpower, and shield the work from variation. The plan will change, but the skilled superintendent will have plans A, B, C, D, E, and F. He or she will always know how to be nimble in a flow. A superintendent will always know how to respond, react, and maintain morale on site, and know how to meet the next milestone. There really is no need for a superintendent who doesn't have a schedule. Principle 6. Study the drawings, talk to the building, predict the future, and share what you learn. There are 4 key habits that are common to most successful superintendents. We study the drawings, do reflection walks, use our schedule effectively, and communicate what we learn. These are universally helpful for any position or personality type. First, take the time to study the drawings. This is at the root of what we are paid to do. Schedules are made from drawings. Budgets are then made from the drawings and the schedule. Quality and safety are planned around them as well. Everything starts with our ability to read and understand drawings. Even design management is the act of trying to collaborate and get to a set of drawings. Construction drawings are essential to what we do, how we do it, and why we, as a general contractor, are paid so much. We can understand the design intent, build the project visually in our minds beforehand, and create something from nothing. No one else can do that. That is our skill set. As such, it comes as a surprise that many would learn this valuable technique only to later ignore it and suffer from low quality, poor planning, and unsatisfied customers. We need to study the drawings daily to know what, when, how, why, and where we are building. Try to set aside at least a half hour each day to do this. If you cannot get 1 half hour, try to get 15 minutes. If you forget one day, remember the next. Schedule it on your calendar. Focus on the areas you need to study just ahead of where the project is now. Study details, dive into the hard areas, and make it fun. Highlight, mark, take notes, get addicted to it. We should drool when we see a nicely printed set of new drawings. We should go down to Staples like it's Black Friday, to quote Buddy Haas, and empty out the store in an effort to get the highlighters, pens, stickies, markers, and other supplies we need to help us fully understand and interpret our project drawings. A great superintendent will study the drawings daily. It is what we get paid to do. Without this habit, we can become brokers and construction managers instead of builders. Second, build time into your day for reflection walks. Reflection walks are when you go to the place of work and try to see every aspect of the site. Try to talk to the building and ask it questions. Try listening to it. It will tell you where to go next and what to do. The building will tell you where the problems are and call your attention to the things you would not otherwise see. Now, some of you may think we are heading down a metaphysical path with this whole talk to the building thing, but we are not. The building will talk to you. Just listen. Don't discount it until you try it more than once. Superintendents who take the time to walk the building will always know where to steer the ship with the team. They will always know what to do, especially after studying the drawings and seeing what the building will grow to become in 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year. This is how we go from okay to excellent. We have found few leaders behind schedule or with a project in trouble who take the time to do this. You will also be able to see behaviors while you are on your walk. You can snap pictures, set reminders, and send messages about upcoming efforts. This can be reported the next morning in the worker huddles on site. There are really no words to describe the magic of reflection if done in a quiet, focused, and clear-minded way. Designers may know what the building wants to be, but we talk to it daily as builders. Third, be in the schedule daily and predict the future. Great superintendents can see the future. That is their job. A project manager should read minds, and the superintendent should be able to see the future. There is nothing quite like a superintendent who creates, owns, updates, and manages his or her own schedule. It literally becomes the crystal ball through which we see the project and the future. Without it, a superintendent can become disconnected with the future and stay only in the present. That will only lead to fighting fires. Every superintendent must avoid, as much as possible, someone else completely creating, owning, and updating the schedule. If it must be delegated, proceed cautiously. If it can be avoided, avoid it. Taking the schedule away from a superintendent would be analogous to taking a hammer away from a carpenter and asking him or her to still do their job. If a superintendent will study the drawings, walk the project, and then be in the schedule, they can send reminders, prepare work, get others to see the future with them, and leverage their efforts. It is powerful when you get daily little email snippets of the schedule from the superintendent after he or she has studied the drawings or done a reflection walk. Fourth, communicate what you learn. After a superintendent studies the drawings, walks the project, and schedules effectively, he or she will realize things that need to be scaled to the team. It may be snippets from the schedule, a message, or another brief way of communicating, but it may be more than that. There may need to be a highlighted drawing made for tomorrow. We may need to update the exterior sequence. We might want to add a few notes to meeting agendas to communicate. We might want to make a 5-page drawing to communicate the plan for the next 5 days. The point is this. The plan does little good in the setting of a team if the plan is only in the superintendent's head. The plan is only as good as it can be effectively communicated. Principle 7. Problems are not a problem. One of the main concepts that a superintendent should understand is that problems are not a problem. Every project and every person has problems. The strategic advantage is to raise all problems to the surface by creating a stable environment with flow, then to systematically and passionately remove those problems on a daily and hourly basis. One of the best ways to implement this system is to memorize the 8 wastes in construction and have the entire project memorize the 8 wastes. It is helpful to create the kind of culture that showcases how and why the 8 wastes upset the common group so that you can point out how you can remove those wastes on an hourly and daily basis. Any roadblock, whether it be big or small, should be raised to the surface for removal. This will create flow, ensure quality work is installed, maintain safety, and allow us to meet our schedules. Thinking that you do not have problems will leave the problems in place, not allow us to fix them in enough time, and it will interrupt the flow of work, causing waste and variation. Remember the Ono circles? The purpose for standing inside the circle is to observe and learn about the movement of the job site, to see where improvements may be made. The designer of the Ono circle, Taichi Ono, is known as the father of the Toyota production system and also inspired lean manufacturing in the United States. If Ono asked his workers if there were any problems seen from the perch of the Ono circle, no was the last response he accepted. The following quotes were attributed to Ono, and it is the best practice to adopt his philosophy. Having no problems is the biggest problem of all. Progress cannot be generated when we are satisfied with existing conditions. Principle 8. Implementing lean on projects. There's a specific order in which a superintendent or project team can implement lean on a project. The specific order can be listed the following way. Setting up contracts for lean. All work orders, exhibits, or contracts should list intentions for lean operations and include items such as wall coordination, material storage, concepts like nothing hits the floor, morning huddles, 5S'ing, and any other lean principle which should make its way into a trade partner's contract from the very beginning. If this is not done, history shows that subcontractors may find fault with the merits of such systems and attempt to backcharge the general contractor at a later date. We need to be fair with all trade partners and be very clear about expectations throughout the project. Winning over the workforce. Once the proper lean practices are in contracts, the absolute first thing a project team must do is to win over the workforce. The workforce must be treated with respect, and they also need to feel that respect. It comes from constant communication, modeling, and in maintaining respectful systems on site. Bathrooms, lunchrooms, and the communication systems on site should all work toward an environment where workers feel respected. It is only in this environment that workers will ultimately feel a sense of reciprocity and desire to care for the needs of the project team and the project as a whole. Cleanliness and organization. Cleanliness and organization cannot be overstated. Cleanliness and organization is an environment where everything thrives. Maintaining the attributes of cleanliness and organization shows great respect for the workers, maintains a sense of appreciation amongst your entire project team, and will also enable you to sustain and broaden your existing culture and environment. Sustaining the culture. You must find ways to sustain the culture you have created. The collective behaviors, beliefs, and actions of the team will create the culture you have on site. As the leader, you cannot allow behaviors that are destructive to your culture. You have to shape the beliefs of your project in morning huddles and through constant communication. You have to make sure that everyone's actions are guided properly by the right visual systems, operational structure, and reinforced habits. It is your job to ensure that a proper culture is being maintained on site. One of the best ways to sustain a culture is through standard systems, but also to tour other people through your project and invite project workers to showcase the things they are doing to create lean cultures. Balance and stability. The balance and stability of the team must be maintained at most costs. If a project team, including trade partners and workers, feel overburdened or uneven, it will affect every operating system on site. When a superintendent has worked to create a culture on site and to sustain that culture, he or she must also protect the team from overburden and shield the entire team from variation and waste. This is the only way to ensure the maintenance of the environment you have created. Everything else stems from team balance. Your productivity, your safety, the quality of the work, the innovation and use of technology, everything relies on the balance and stability of the team. Foresight and planning. Foresight and planning must be done from the beginning to the end of a project. One day in pre-construction or planning will make up for a week in the field. 1 hour in pre-construction or planning will make up for a day in the field. All work must be successfully planned and prepared. You, as the superintendent, must follow your standard daily habits to see the future, lead with foresight, plan work so that it can be executed properly, and be 100% prepared and ready for implementation. Clarity and alignment. Once there are standard and stable environments in the office and in the field, the direction of the project and the immediate and long-term goals must be clarified and frequently communicated to everyone on site. Everyone on site should be aware of the contractual end date, the conditions of satisfaction for the project, and the immediate goals for the week or month. There should be no question about the project standards and how the work is to be carried out. Changes, adaptations, major problems, or recoveries must be communicated to the team so that everyone can see as a group, know as a group, and act as a group. Vision and strategy. With clarity and alignment of proper communication comes strategies to overcome certain aspects or phases of the project. The vision for how to overcome mini marches, accomplish milestones, or complete specific efforts has to be clear to everyone. Teams must be nimble and adaptable when difficult situations arise, but the strategy to conquer has to be known play by everyone on site. Culture will beat strategy every time, but not if you have a proper culture, stable systems, and plans and communication on how to win. You can only strategize once you have stability. Form a plan and strategy with all trade partners on site to accomplish specific tasks, goals, and meet specific milestones. Principle 9. Develop a healthy relationship with the project manager. The project manager and superintendent have equally important positions on any project. They can do more when they work in cooperation with one another than each would be able to do on their own. Though they are two people focused on different aspects of the project, they have a common goal of completing the project successfully. By working together, they can leverage more oversight, diversity of opinion, and increased accountability. The superintendent is responsible for keeping the project moving at a reasonable pace. He or she needs to anticipate problems that may arise and be prepared to quickly solve those issues. The project manager is responsible for maintaining a business mindset to reduce risk on the site and to interact with the owner to make sure his or her expectations are met. Clear expectations of each role will eliminate an adversarial relationship. Tension is best avoided if you maintain your role as supervisor and allow the project manager to fulfill his or her own role. As a superintendent, support the project manager by showing an awareness of project finances as you stay within financial constraints by properly forecasting contingency plans. You can also support the project manager by making safety, quality, and timeliness a priority in the field. Make inroads with your project manager by supporting team health and making sure that everybody on the project feels that they are part of an effective and high-performing team throughout construction. It is important to dutifully execute your daily, weekly, and monthly plans with the needs of the owner in mind. Maintaining focus on the owner will cause you to think in ways that will readily make the project manager's job easier, and he or she will be more accommodating to you in return. If you're focused on maintaining safety and controlling costs, you show the project manager you respect him or her as a professional. When the project manager feels respected in his or her role on the project, it is easier to reciprocate by finding ways to provide needed manpower and funding as you need them. It is never a good idea for a superintendent to demand rather than to give. There must be a balance between the worksite and administrative offices. Both the project manager and the superintendent should cultivate awareness of one another's professional responsibilities from the beginning and maintain that respect throughout the project. Proper communication between the positions is essential for the success of both the superintendent and the project manager and, ultimately, the project itself. If those in the office are only worried about the cost and risk, and those in the field are only worried about schedules and manpower, then we are all at risk for mistakes, injuries, and other unintended consequences. Our product is this: workers putting work in place in buildings. That's what we sell. Superintendents organize and deliver that product. Project managers support and enable the superintendents, act as advocates with the owners, and make sure that we are financing the product. We are not selling the superintendent's egos or the project manager's pride. We really need to understand that acting in tandem so workers can perform their jobs is the most important point. We don't want a hierarchy to enter into this dynamic situation. We do want to recognize the value of both positions. Working together, the superintendent and project manager can do far more than if they view each other as adversaries. Principle 10. Staff and field officers should support one another. One common theme that arises from a study of military history is the conflict between staff and field officers. Typically, staff officers would work at headquarters located a safe distance from the battlefield. They would handle general logistics, coordinate the efforts with allies, and other organizational tasks. Field officers would be the boots on the ground, working with soldiers in combat and making decisions on a day-to-day basis. Often, these two groups of leaders would clash over what was the best course to victory, and as a result, a feeling of dislike would develop between the two groups. Patton, Eisenhower, and Field Marshal Erwin Rommel all mentioned the division between staff and field officers in their biographies and stressed the need to merge the two worlds. Likewise, it's common on construction projects to sometimes experience disagreements or to harbor an us versus them mentality among office staff and field staff. In reality, the office staff and the field staff are part of the same team that owns all aspects of the plan. Thinking in definitive terms of office and field is one of the most damaging and detrimental philosophies affecting our projects. If those in the field only look at the schedule and will not focus on procurement, finances, customer service, and owner relations, then they are not doing their part to ensure the success of the project. If the office only focuses on procurement and finances, they will miss very important aspects of the schedule, flow in the field, and how to take care of the craft workers. In other words, they will not be doing their part to ensure the success of the project. Everyone needs to own all aspects of the plan. When silos exist between the field and office, there is also fear of stepping on somebody's toes. That sort of culture is divisive and not conducive to project success. Ideally, we want the superintendent to be able to ask anything he or she wants about finances, procurement, and owner relations. And the project manager and project director should always be able to ask any question about schedule, field operations, quality, and safety. There should be no hesitation to ask, nor should there be any feeling of defensiveness when asked. Everyone on the job site should be accountable to one another. There should be no situations occurring when people pull rank. We love when a field engineer can hold a project director, field operations director, or superintendent accountable with a comment or a challenge to do the right thing. This does not mean that everyone needs to make everything their primary focus. The superintendent will focus mainly on the schedule. The project manager will focus mainly on finances and customer relations. But everyone should be aware of all areas of concern, weigh in on them as needed, and buy into all aspects of the project. There should be no divisions. Construction is a team sport. We have clear lines and defined roles on a construction project. In fact, it's one key indicator of a successful project. But those defining roles, those lines, are thin lines and can be crossed when necessary. Just as a forward can step into a guard's position on a basketball court when needed, the project manager should be able to step in and help manage the schedule and run trades for the superintendent if required. If the project manager is absent, the lead superintendent should be able to step in and run an OAC, take care of an owner request, and help in other areas. There should be a horizontally equal feel to the organizational structure of the team. If you were responsible for everything on a project, how would you act? How would you execute your day-to-day responsibilities? Focusing on that from time to time is important. Don't silo, disrespect others, or reduce the amount of communication that you provide. Recognize the value that all positions play on a project. There are some key considerations that will help field and staff officers be successful together. One is working in close proximity in an open office space, not separated by walls, so that frequent communication is possible. The other consideration is communication itself that comes in the form of huddles, daily check-ins, and weekly team meetings that are meaningful and draw the team together. Also important are team building sessions where everyone on the project can develop rapport, get to know each other, and develop trust in order to foster good team health in all that they do. Principle 11. Short interval scheduling should always be tied to milestones. On some projects, the work is complex enough that the lead superintendent will work with a superintendent level 1 or level 2. The lead superintendent is then in charge of planning and executing the communication structure and work of the entire project, while the level 1 and 2 superintendents will be focused on portions of the work. These components of the overall project must be coordinated and executed according to their own schedules, a short interval schedule. Level 1 and 2 superintendents are responsible for focusing on the details of these components for the overall project and will ensure that the work is done well, on time, and with the supplies and materials required. Communication is essential between the lead superintendent, project manager, and the level 1 and 2 superintendents to make sure that the short interval schedules are completed at specific points or milestones of the overall schedule. If they are completed in a timely manner, the overall project can continue to move forward, but a delay disrupts the entire construction schedule. Therefore, superintendents level 1 and level 2 have a duty to ensure that they are focused on the details of their specific projects and know which areas are reliant on them to meet their short interval scheduling goals to complete work on time. Communication will prove invaluable when it becomes necessary to share manpower, materials, or resources between the various aspects of the projects assigned to assistant superintendents. By coordinating their efforts with the senior superintendent, he or she can ensure that needed manpower or supplies can be shifted as needed. If other areas of the overall project are suffering from delays due to a shortage of materials or manpower, that is the concern of the lead superintendent. The focus of a superintendent level 1 or 2 should remain on the portion of the project they have been assigned to oversee. As long as they have the materials and manpower they need, they should move forward with their responsibilities. The lead superintendent should be able to trust the level 1 and 2 superintendents to oversee the construction of the projects they have been assigned. They focus on the areas of the project, not the project as a whole. The lead super should be able to count on the level 1 and 2 supers to complete their aspects of the project on time without having to micromanage their efforts. Assistant superintendents are to make sure that the day and week planning is executed well. Senior superintendents are to make sure the week, month, and year-long planning is going well. Senior superintendents are there to make sure that design, RFI answers and specifications, and any other needed information is there to support the short interval plans of the assisting superintendents. If something happens relating to manpower, materials, or delays on the aspect of the project you are supervising, it is essential that you reach out to the project manager and lead superintendent. Do not fear transparency. Trying to hide difficulties you cannot solve on your own will only lead to further delays for the entire project. Be transparent and open. All levels of superintendents are important. Nothing works without drive in the field and energy of the team. We create that energy by having layers of oversight built into our leadership so that somebody is watching and providing accountability. We must have somebody motivating, communicating, and looking at the details, or the specific tasks covered in the short interval schedules will not be executed. One level of leadership ties into the other. Differing roles are equally important, and they are all aligned vertically with project milestones. Principle 12. Always make production tracking a focus. Problems on a construction project belong to the team. We need to be able to see problems as soon as possible so they can be addressed quickly and effectively to minimize delays to the project. No one should be trying to hide problems on the job site. Problems can be found quickly through production tracking. A master schedule with short interval schedules tied to milestones on the master schedule allows superintendents to quickly identify delays and shortages. It also allows them to predict future issues. Everyone on the project should be anticipating roadblocks and potential problems as far into the future as possible so that we can continue to execute our plans daily with a consistent flow. The key to success is flow. If we have a pull plan that ties to a milestone, we need to make commitments on a weekly basis according to that pull plan. Every trade partner on site should make commitments as a team for the next day and the next week, then track those commitments with daily progress reports. After tracking these commitments, performance should be graded. In lean construction, there's something called a percent plan complete. PPC scores track the amount of activities that you've committed to and how many have been completed. For each contractor in any given week and for any phase of work, there will be a PPC score that will track the percentage of the things committed to do as well as actually completed. Tracking progress in this way allows contractors to communicate reasons why they were unable to complete their commitments, so we can help them make corrections. Also, this allows us to grade the overall performance and behaviors of our organization and our trade partners. We use a series of objective grading criteria that allows us to identify if a contractor is being successful. But the main benefit of the percent plan complete is to track and remove roadblocks to completion. Fanatical roadblock removal is the key to any production tracking system on site. We need to gather this information regularly to create accountability. Quick, proactive reactions will allow contractors the empowerment to immediately widen their circle and tell the general contractor before the problem grows. Every action on site flows to a rhythm. If a roadblock interrupts the rhythm of a project because of lack of materials, manpower, or information, then it will disrupt the flow. It will make us lose money, put us behind schedule, or cause other unintended consequences. As we track production, we make commitments to try to create flow. As we do so, we not only ask contractors what they want, we ask them what they need to complete their portion of the project by the scheduled milestone. Then we try to level out the workload or the flow of every contractor. Sometimes contractors will declare, "I have to go faster," or slower. We must then find compromises so that we can optimize the schedule of the entire project. Together, we need to create a plan to meet the scheduled dates and find the win-win so that we can remove roadblocks. We must be nimble. No matter how well we plan, issues will still arise. If everyone is committed to maintaining the flow of work, then we can react to these issues quickly, adjust our plan, and recover from any negative impacts sooner rather than later. A superintendent must know the costs of an interruption in production that requires a course correction, as well as other activities and teams the interruption will affect. Making production tracking a focus will help provide these answers so he or she can make good decisions to keep a project on track.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.